Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
On October 4th, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1, a beach ball-sized satellite, starting the space race. In response, on February 6, 1958, Lyndon B. Johnson established a Senate Special Committee on Space and Aeronautics with the goal of creating a space agency. As a result, Congress approved legislation creating NASA on July 29, 1958. On October 5, 1958, NASA launched their first spacecraft, the Pioneer 1. On May 5, 1961, NASA launches the first American astronaut into space, Alan Shepard Jr. On February 20, 1962, John Glenn becomes the first American to orbit Earth. By June 3, 1965, American Ed White performs the first American spacewalk. On December 21, 1968, Apollo 8 is the first manned spacecraft to orbit the moon. By July 20th, 1969, NASA gets Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin to the moon, becoming the first humans to walk on the moon.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Over the next several years, NASA successfully completes several missions to the moon. In 1977, NASA launches the Voyager 1 and 2 on courses to perform flybys of Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, and Saturn before continuing into space forever. On April 25, 1990, the Hubble telescope is placed in orbit by NASA's space shuttle, Discovery. On May 29, 1999, Discovery becomes the first shuttle to dock with the International Space Station. Then, in 2000, NASA helped put the first crew in the International Space Station, consisting of Russians and Americans. In 2008, NASA discovered water on Mars. These are all amazing achievements, but just a drop in the bucket of possibilities, the bucket of innovations by NASA, or the bucket of federal money. A major reason for lack of funding is the general lack of support by the American public. Many people think things like, if we still have problems on Earth, why put tax money into space? This couldn't be farther from the truth. Best put by Neil deGrasse Tyson, if I had a nickel for every time someone said, why are we spending money up there when we have problems down here? The first and simplest answer to that concern is that one day there'll be a killer asteroid heading straight for us, which means not all of your problems are Earth-based. Beyond this, NASA does benefit our day-to-day lives in many ways, both social and economic. If we approach the conflict around NASA funding from a purely economic standpoint, we see a clear argument against the previously mentioned hesitation against more NASA funding. First, and most importantly, a recent study showed that every $1 put into the space industry results in $10 back into the American economy. This is for many reasons, most importantly the technology created by NASA and other space organizations. Some of the technology innovated or improved by NASA includes improved LEDs, the invention of the ear thermometer, better artificial limbs, improved plane anti-icing systems, improved roads that have better traction, improved tires with better traction, improved chemical detection, improved freeze-drying technology, the invention of the cordless vacuum, better baby food, and advanced solar panels/cells, and much, much more. Additionally, there are many potential resources available for harvesting in space, including many precious metals. In fact, predictions say the first trillionaire will make their fortune from the asteroid mining industry. For this reason, these resources will be pursued, and the US will be better off as the ones controlling this new frontier of wealth. All of this is not to mention the elephant in the room, NASA's budget in comparison with that of the federal government and that of the Department of Defense. In 2018, NASA's budget was about $2.27 billion. While $2.27 billion may sound like a lot of money, it was a measly 0.5% of 2018's total budget of $6.6 trillion. To fully understand why this is such an issue, one must look closely at how the federal budget is allocated. Although it varies year to year, in recent years NASA's budget has remained around 0.5% of the federal budget, with an all-time high of about 5% during the space race. In comparison, the U.S. military's budget is around 55% of the federal budget every year. This means that a year of NASA budget isn't even 2 days of military spending. It is estimated that the military spends more in space each year than NASA, the agency tasked with exploring space, does. Financial inequalities and incentives aside, NASA's social value should not be underestimated. Both humanity and America have always been obsessed with one thing: exploration. We see this all throughout history. America was a result of exploration, as was westward expansion. Humans have always been obsessed with the frontier, so why stop now? The last frontier must be explored, if not out of curiosity, then out of a necessity for space. As society continues, as we ruin our world, there will come a time when we need a planet B. Without space exploration, without NASA, this won't happen. In the early days of NASA captured the minds of American dreamers. Many kids wanted to be astronauts when they grew up, and watched in awe as NASA astronauts changed the world. We have seen that NASA knows how to reach for the stars, and knows how to dream, something that the US desperately needs right now. This is best put by Neil deGrasse Tyson when he says, "America is fading right now. Nobody's dreaming about tomorrow anymore. NASA knows how to dream about tomorrow. If the funding can accommodate it, if the funding can empower it. Sure, you need good teachers, but the teachers come and go because kids go on to the next grade, and then the grade after that. Teachers can help light a flame, but we need something to keep the flame fanned. And that's the effect of NASA on who and what we are as a nation, and what we have been as a nation, and perhaps for a while took for granted as a nation." This quote is a perfect explanation of how imperative it is for us as a country to back science and our future. NASA can't do this without adequate funding. Not only can they not be the inspiration for dreamers that they once were, but they often can't complete tasks that they are tasked with because of a lack of funding. As NASA astronaut Scott Kelly said on a Reddit livestream, "I would like the next president to support a budget that allows us to accomplish the mission that we are asked to perform, whatever that mission may be." This sentiment is backed by most of NASA and the industry. When NASA was created in 1958 with the Space Act, Section 102 set NASA's objectives. These objectives included the expansion of human knowledge, improvement of aeronautical and space vehicles, the establishment of long-range studies, preservation of the role of the United States as a leader in space, and the most effective use of U.S. science and engineering resources to avoid unnecessary duplication of effort. It was amended slightly since then, including a new objective to maintain the U.S. as the dominant power in space. Although NASA has been innovative and largely successful with most of these objectives, lack of funding has slowed it down or even prevented NASA from doing so. Without increasing funding for NASA, the U.S. will be overtaken as a leader in space eventually, something which would seriously rob the U.S. of a world, maybe many, of resources. For these reasons, funding NASA is essential. Not only will it benefit the U.S. economy, but also the daily lives of people. Most importantly, it will expand the horizons of humanity.